This week's episode of The Grid is sponsored by Impix. Shoot today, upload tonight, we ship tomorrow. Manfrotto, imagine more. On One Software, software that gets you back to shooting. Adorama, more than a camera store. And Tiffin, helping create the world's greatest images.
Hello everyone and welcome to another live episode of The Grid, starring three beautiful men, each one more beautiful than the next.
I hope I'm last. Can I be last?
What I walk into?
Hi everybody, welcome to the live show. We are very honored to have with us our very good friend and special buddy and incredible photographer, Mr. Moose Peterson.
Scott, it's a pleasure again.
How you doing, Moosey?
I'm doing great, man.
Good to see you, man.
Good to see you back on these shores. Mr. Matt.
Moose.
Good, you?
Oh, good.
He's the other guy, Matt Kleskowski.
See you on the ground for a change.
Yeah, last time I saw Moose, I was in a plane 6,000 feet above the...
Yeah.
Smiling,
And after
smiling.
Matt told me the story of, so Moose had asked me if I wanted to go to this air-to-air shoot. I did not go. and Matt told me parts of the air-to-air shoot, and as soon as he described part of it, I said,
I'm glad
I didn't go. I'm not sure air-to-air shooting is for me, so because I'm kind of a wuss.
Funnest thing in the world.
Hey, we have some
cool.
couple important things. First, joining us also in the studio today, our very, very special guest, Frank Duerhoff is here. Frank, buddy, how you doing, man? Frank was on the grid last week, but he's here doing some Kelby training classes, and I had lunch with some people from my staff today, and they were talking about Frank's classes and just tell me about some of the unbelievable stuff you were doing yesterday on location with bags of flour. Yeah. But they said it was amazing. So how do you come up with this stuff?
Well, sick mind.
Sick mind. Okay, good.
Images are really
anyway,
cool.
good to have you here, Frank. And all the way from France, which I'll be in France, so I'll talk about that in just a moment. But before, vive la France! Please welcome Mademoiselle Nancy.
Bonjour.
Bonjour, Mademoiselle.
Yeah, dude, you didn't let me go. You know, you're going to France. I would have gotten my passport.
Yeah. Gosh, that was totally
About
an oversight.
that.
Totally an oversight.
Nancy's home turf.
It is your home turf.
Yeah. It's the land of my people.
It is the land of your people.
I get this, the accent.
I didn't realize you had people.
Go figure.
Come from the accent.
No, you
Couple.
can't. Oh, she's so French.
I got a couple.
All
She
right.
blends.
Everything good, Nance?
Yes. I'm really sorry. I'm laughing because you know I'm usually like first to the set and I was last. So
I know. I was starting to get
We were
worried. I'm
actually
like,
here on time.
yeah, we were here well on time.
I
It's just-
know
it's unusual for us.
opposite day.
It is.
It is.
Anyway, we have Brad Moore helping us with the comments. I don't know where Pete Collins is.
Pete's doing videos.
Oh, Pete's doing videos. Okay.
My dad can help, though.
Oh, that's right. Your dad's here.
I'm kind of nervous.
Okay, you shouldn't
have
be
to be-
nervous.
I have to be
He seems
good.
like a great guy. Okay.
have to be good.
Hey, I do want to tell you something before we go on, because this is kind of important. So Mr. Kleskowski, as so many of you know, he's a martial artist. He's a black belt in Taekwondo, but he's been going to a number of fights in different competitions. I want to say fights. That sounds kind of bad. Been competing in a bunch
around fighting people.
of competitions, which is leading up to the national competition coming up here in I believe it is in June.
June.
But right now, Mr. Kleskowski in fighting, in sparring, is ranked #2 in the nation.
Yeah, thanks,
Dude.
man.
Rocking it, dude.
Thank
I
you.
know, this
Thank
is
you.
why I'm so nice to him all the time, because he's very mean. All right, so congratulations.
Thank
We'll be
you.
rooting for you to win.
I think June 21st or 22nd.
So you're actually kicking butt literally
Hey,
there.
look
big
at this.
day.
Brad writes up there, just #2.
Number
wuss.
2 was.
All right. Okay. So, hey, we have a couple of things. First, we have a special deal. You guys have probably heard about the Google Plus Photographers Conference. It's coming up this month, the 22nd and 23rd in San Francisco. We have a special offer for people who watch this show. If you watch this show, you can get $50 off, which is pretty good. It's only $2.99. So,
Yeah.
Well, now it's $3.49, isn't it? So you would pass the early bird deadline. So you can get it at the old price. Plus, you get 2 free months of Kelby training. You have to use the promo code when you check out, gplus.com. So here's where you go. Go to G Plus PC for Photographers Conference. There it is right there. Go to that website. There's all the details. It's going to be a blast if you're into photography or you're into anything.
Well, just, I mean, look at the,
Yeah, look
there's
at
some
the
great
people
people
there.
there. So you got Peter Hurley, Alex Koloskov,
Catherine
German
Hall,
Coward's gonna
yeah,
be Catherine Hall,
Peter
Trey
Hurd,
Ratcliffe.
Brian Rose. I mean, everybody. Look, RC is going to be there. Eric Fallon, he rocks.
But you got a
Lindsay
bunch of
Adler.
great photo walks planned too, just
Yeah.
besides.
Yeah, the day before, we're
you
doing
gotta
all
have
these
like the
photo
whole
walks.
town canvas from Wharf to
Yeah, we are. We got
Castro
like
District and back, right?
We got like 12 different places, so it's going to be a lot of fun.
That's very cool.
So if you want to learn about Google Plus, which is an incredible photography for a community for photographers, and you want to learn a bunch about photography as well, come and join us. Go to gpluspc.com for all the details. Now, we also have a special deal for students. Now, this is weird.
I love the student discount code.
Yeah, the
this
student
has
discount
to be
code.
my favorite discount code that
Ever.
we've ever had before. Can I?
Absolutely, please.
So there's a special student price.
It says it on screen there.
Yeah, students can go for $99, but you gotta love the student discount code. G plus stud.
That's it.
Best-
G plus
best
stud.
discount code
I'm a
ever.
G plus stud. You get $50 off. No, you get $200 off. It's only $99 if you're a student.
You gotta show your stud ID though.
Yeah, you have to show your stud ID. You have to show a picture of you, in a movie. Okay, so Moose did my guest blog today.
See.
Good job.
Thank you.
Go to scottkelby.com and read Moose's guest blog. This is the third one you've done or fourth?
Over the entire time of
Yeah.
it, I think
Oh,
number
you-
5, dude.
Wow, number 5.
I think we hit 5.
Well,
yeah.
there it is right there.
I like my surfing egret there.
That is a good
He's
surfing
hanging 10,
egret.
man.
He is hanging 10.
Yeah.
How'd you get him to do that?
It's called the D4, 10 frames per second. Pray a lot when you hit the button shot.
Yeah, okay. Well,
Yeah.
very nice. Hey, a couple little housekeeping things before we go on. We have a great topic today, but Matt, you got your tour coming up. Now, you just did a couple of dates.
Yeah. So yeah, I just did. I kicked off the Lightroom 4 Live tour in Minneapolis 2 Mondays ago,
Right.
and then we went to LA. So we had 3, and then we went to Chicago yesterday. So 3 killer crowds. Thank you so much to everybody that was out there. I could not have kicked this thing off to 3 better cities because everybody was phenomenal. Every city was so welcoming, and I was talking to you about this. We've been using Lightroom so long. It's like you think like everybody's using Lightroom, but just by looking at the sales and everything like that, I mean, there's new Lightroom users coming every day. So
They're
I'd ask in
pouring
the
in,
beginning
yeah.
of the class, I'd say, how many people here have kind of already been using Lightroom? And it's just a small number of people, and so out of 400 people, there's 350 of them that are really there to learn the product.
Yeah,
so it's so cool.
Well, the new lower price, I think, certainly helped.
Yeah,
Brought a lot of people to
definitely.
it.
Don't hurt.
Hey, just want to, our buddy Mike from Google, he's going to be a daddy. So, hey, shout out to Mike. What a wonderful guy he is. And we wish him and his lovely wife lots of cool baby stuff.
He
that's
doesn't
what
know
it's
what he
called.
started.
No, it's the coolest thing
Lots
ever.
of sleep.
Hey, we got some great prizes for you too. One more thing. So I just got back from the UK. I did my tour there last week. And Matt, as good as your crowds were, I kid you not, I had one of the best crowds. Brad will tell you, we had one of the best crowds to present to, absolutely, for the whole year. I had people bringing me gifts. I had multiple people bringing me guitar picks.
That's cool.
I had a guy that brought me a tuner, a capo, like 30 picks. I had another guy bring me picks. I had another guy bring me picks. I had people bring me chocolate. All these gifts. Like, U.S. cities don't bring us gifts. Why is that? Did you get any gifts?
Yeah.
Oh, dang. All right, forget it. Anyway, so.
I got gummy bears.
hey.
I got Swedish fish.
Oh, I got Swedish fish. I swear
Did
to
you?
goodness.
And you don't even like Swedish fish.
I know. No, the guy he opened the bag and brought him up. Hey, a Swedish fish. I saw it on the grid. Okay, but a lot of viewers of the grid, so thanks everybody else. Also, Glenn Dewis was my guest retoucher, and he did a great job. He absolutely wowed the crowd.
Glenn's awesome.
He
What
did
a great
great.
guy.
Everybody loved him. He was wonderful. Okay, a couple of things. What else? We have prizes. What are our prizes?
We have prizes.
Now, we're giving away these prizes later, so don't overwhelm Nancy with how do I win. We'll tell you when to win.
All right, so first off, we have 2.
Not
Frank,
just one.
Frank is taking pictures here. I'll hold them up for Frank, and then I'll hold them up for the rest of the audience. So we have 2 Frank Doorhoff live in Boston. Why fake it
when you can,
create it? So those will go to 2 different people, and then we have the full on-one perfect photo suite. So that'll go to somebody
Wow.
All right. Prizes galore. Do you have any more Lightroom tours coming up?
too. They're in the works. I think San Francisco. We're looking at June for San Francisco, New York, Lansing.
Very nice.
So no dates firm yet, but we'll let you know.
All right, when we come back,
promise.
we have the future of Photoshop for photographers. It's kind of a little different take on it than you might think. We've got some interesting things to talk about. I'm sure we're going to make some
Oh, I
people,
love this topic. This topic's awesome.
We're going to make some people very angry.
Okay, so here's the thing. I think we're going to make some people angry, but I also think will help way more people, because I think there's so many people that are confused about what we're talking about.
But only in the
too.
long run if they think
Right.
about it.
Yeah.
Also, hey, one more thing. Our buddy Sean Welsh. So, hey, I don't know if you know Sean. He was making he's making the Google Plus app for the conference for us. And while he was doing that, he was working with us, and he's come up with a Google Plus app just for Google Plus. And it's from what I hear, it's pretty smoking.
I can't wait to see
So
it.
we're going to be seeing that soon as well, but not until we take this break. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back. Do not leave from your television set because you're not watching it on your television set. Go to your computer. We'll see you back in 30 seconds, or 60 or 90. And we're
Fashion, lighting. I'm obsessed with red. Red is arresting, it's eye-catching. People can go anywhere for beautiful headshots, nice portraits. But what I like to do is give them something a little more. Have a concept. I like to tell a story. As a professional portrait and fashion photographer, I like to take the elements of fashion photography and apply them to my portrait and wedding work. We'll cover locations, props, hair and makeup, just a lot of different elements that you can apply to your work and really stand out from the crowd. Fashion Flair is not ordinary, it's exciting. So come watch my class, Fashion Flair, at kelbytraining.com.
Where will you be on May 22nd? When some of the biggest photographers on Google+, some of the best instructors of photography in the world today, and some of the geniuses of social media all take the stage in San Francisco for a history-breaking event. It's the first ever Google+ conference for photographers. Now, this is a conference that's different than any other you've seen. It's a collaborative conference that mixes photography, social media, branding, and networking. And the whole thing is designed to help you grow. It's to help you grow your business, grow your brand, grow your friends, grow your circles, and grow your skills all through Google+. Google+ is an incredibly vibrant community for photographers. It's exploding, and if you're not a part of this, you're going to be missing out on something very, very special. This is the time to harness your experience on Google+. This is the time to get the most of it. This is the future, and you want to be a part of it now. And this is the conference where it all comes together. You're going to learn from some of the very best in the business. People like Jeremy Cowart, Trey Ratcliffe, Alex Koloskov, Peter Hurley, Colby Brown, Catherine Hall, Lindsay Adler, R.C. Concepcion, Matt Kliskowski, and many more. Plus, I'll be teaching a number of conference sessions, and we have a special appearance from Guy Kawasaki. But if you come to this conference, you have got to bring your camera, because you're going to be doing photo walks, you're going to be doing location shoots, studio shoots, you're going to be taking classes and shooting alongside some of the very, very best in the business. And the whole focus of this conference, of course, is to make sure that you maximize your Google+ experience. You're going to learn from photographers who've built an incredible success story based on what they've done on Google+. You're going to hear their techniques, their tips, and you're even going to hear directly from the people at Google+ on how to maximize your experience and grow your business and grow your reach through using Google+. It's going to be an amazing 2.5 days, and if you sign up early, it's only $299. I hope I get to see you in one of my classes, or I get to shoot alongside you at the Google+ Conference for Photographers, May 22nd in San Francisco. We'll see you there. Hey, we are back live with The Grid. Moose Peterson, our in-studio guest.
Hey, good to be here.
Hey, Moose.
Hey.
Hey, man.
Hola. I always like when I come here because I hear this chorus of phony moose laughs going around the office. That's it. There you go.
No.
Okay. Hey,
Who got it better, Moose? Come on.
Who gets the best? Pete.
You did.
Oh, Pete.
All right.
Pete.
Hey, we do need to take 15 seconds and thank our sponsor, MPix.
We love MPix.
We love MPix. MPix is an online photo lab. MPix.com. They get your stuff there by 11 a.m. They have it to you the next day.
I have an image open in Photoshop right now that will be at MPix very, very soon, because I have to send one to somebody. I have to send a print to somebody. Yeah.
Can I see it?
Moose will recognize it, actually.
Let's see. Ooh, that's not very good. I wouldn't send that to anybody.
Hey.
No, that looks great. It's a terrific picture.
That's very cool. Yeah.
Can you show it online or anything?
I'm hooked up.
Did you start all that stuff?
Yeah, I started.
All right, see if you can show Matt's computer. It's a very nice picture.
Push the button.
Oh,
There you go.
There you go.
So this is the plane.
That's what I did. That's what I did on Moose's workshop.
Yeah, not me.
And if you think like, oh well, he just had a really, really long lens to take this picture. This guy was parked up behind our plane at what, 4,000 feet?
3,000 feet. Yep. He was about 30 feet behind.
I'd have been yelling at him, "You're too close! You're too close!"
If I zoom in, you can read the name on his tag. I mean, you can read it on his patches.
Wow, crazy.
It's pretty cool.
All right, so today our topic is the future of Photoshop for photographers. But I have to kind of back into this. So I want to talk about this first part, because it's all a long chain that leads us to the right thing. But while you're here, I thought you'd appreciate this. So a couple of weeks ago, we did our blind critiques, and we talked about landscape photography. And one of the things that we said was, you know, if you want to take great landscape photography, there's a couple of things you have to do. Number one is you have to go to a great place to take landscape photography. Your own backyard may not necessarily be, you know, depending on where you live. If you live in like downtown Orlando, Florida, I wouldn't think that's a hot spot for landscape.
If you live in Moab.
If you live in Moab, Utah, you live somewhere in Arizona, you know, you live upstate New York, there's lots of places. Right, you know, or in other places around the world, any place like Italy, France, there's beautiful places in Switzerland. So a guy comes up to me at my London seminar, very nice guy, and very patient, waited a long time in line. I finally get up to him, and he's like, you know, he saw the grid and saw us talking about that. And he's like, well, what if I don't live any place near a nice landscape? And I go, look, you live in London. You're a train ride away from some of the most beautiful, you're just a few hours from Scotland. You don't even have to go all the way to Scotland. You can go just outside of London to the countryside, and you have some of the most beautiful. And he was like, yeah, but what if I just, so then he said, you know, well, do I have to get up early? Yeah, you kind of need to get up early. So anyway, what was interesting was we went round and round in a circle, because what he really wanted to say to me was, yes, I want to take beautiful landscape photography, but I'm not willing to do the two most basic things to take it. So the reason I'm telling you this is kind of the before the story, is we went round and round and round, and he basically wanted me to go, look, I'm giving you special permission to shoot in very, very bad light right next to your house. And he goes, well, can I just practice there? And I said, well, yeah, but I said, here's the thing, and this is what I want to say to everybody that watched that show, which is, this is the preamble to what we're going to, is this. And what I told him is this. I said, do this. Do it one day. Get on a train, buy a $16 train fare, get up early, leave your house at 4:30 in the morning, go out there, set up your tripod. I said, there's probably nothing that you need to practice. Setting your camera on a tripod at f/22 is not something you need to work on a whole bunch. I said, right?
Fighting that number, 22, 32, 16.
Oh,
there, hey!
All right. And I said, just go out there, set up your tripod, and just do it one time. Just get up early. And I said, here's why. Because all of a sudden, you're going to see on the back of your camera the pictures you've always dreamed of having. And then I'll never have to convince you again, because you will, on your way home, be looking at the train schedule to see when to go out next week. You'll see, what's the soonest I can get out here and try a different place. But until you do it and you realize what a difference it makes, the problem was he didn't realize what a difference it makes. He just thinks, well, it won't be that bad if I shoot in the middle of the afternoon. Anyway, super nice guy. He wasn't a bad guy at all. He wasn't argumentative. He was extremely friendly and very, very nice, as was everybody I talked to there. But it was just, that's what he took from that show was, I don't really have to do that.
That's only like,
you know,
if you need to.
Yeah.
No, you need to.
Yeah, you have to. There's no way around, and there's for a number of reasons. The first one, of course, is the light. I mean, that's the most obvious reason. But the thing that most people don't realize, that if you don't get up early, you go out there and everything that you had, you know, work, emails, that stuff, still in your head. So when you get out there early, you're still not in the groove.
Right. You're not
finding
focused.
F22 might be hard. Instead of letting it seep in and actually feeling what's going on with the light in the scene that makes the photograph even that much better, you don't give yourself the chance to do that. So those pictures come back kind of uptight, just like you were when you took the picture.
Yeah.
So it's a two-phase thing.
The other thing I always tell people, because you could always say, well, you could go out for sunset. And you can go out for sunset. You can still get good light. The problem is sunset's easier.
It is easier.
So if you go any place that other people might go to, you're going to have crowds, where you typically don't have as big a crowds at sunrise.
Yeah.
And then, you know, another thing, for, you know, again, and this is just location based, but like lakes and things like that, they tend to be calm in the morning. You go out at the end of the day and you don't have those pretty glassy lakes and all those different things. So there's a lot of reasons to go out in the morning.
Yeah, and the air is also going to be cooler, so it'll be denser, so you're going
Yeah.
to have better color.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of reasons why.
All of my favorite landscape shots were usually shot at sunrise.
Sunrise.
Yep,
Yeah.
sunrise. Yeah, absolutely.
And you're going to have a whole lot more chance of getting skunked
All right.
shooting sunrises.
Yeah.
Hey, David D
Oh, yeah.
says people should spend money on travel rather than buying camera gear, just hoping the gear will make a difference in their photography. That's true, because you can take a $10,000 body and a $5,000 lens out at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and get some of the most uninspired things you've ever seen. Okay.
And you could take a D70 out at 6 a.m. and still get a wonderful picture.
Beautiful shot, absolutely. So here we go. So I was at a shoot recently, and there were other photographers there. So this is going to finally bring us back to where we need to be. So I'm at this shoot with this guy, a nice guy. He was a photographer and he's been doing this a while, and we're talking. And he had absolutely no idea that I was a photographer at all. We were just talking, and we're going on. And he was telling me about all his experience and stuff. And he mentioned that he had spent a lot of time in the darkroom. And I'm like, oh yeah. And he said, oh yeah, I learned it the old-fashioned way. And he says, I really think that it's made a real difference. It really makes a difference in my work today in Camera Raw and Lightroom. Now, Moose, I couldn't leave that alone.
Couldn't? No. Yeah. Who could?
So I said,
seriously.
So I said, so it's really changed the way you work? Oh yeah, I think having that experience in the darkroom. And I said, well, there's like 5 sliders in the basic panel in Lightroom. I'd be very interested to know what you're doing differently because of your time in the darkroom. And he said, well, I just think it changes the way you think about it. I said,
How?
okay, how? And it was like,
Cricket
sounds?
sounds?
Yeah, it was dead silence. He looked at me like, I can't believe someone really asked me. Because I think that's one of those things that you say. You say it
And it
out
sounds
loud.
good.
And it
It
sounds
does.
really good. It makes you sound smart and all this kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, it's like he had absolutely no way. And I said, well, like, which slider does it change? Like, which slider do you not use, or do you use because you did that? And he was like, completely just dumbfounded. And I'm like, and I know what it is, all right? So he spent a lot of time learning this stuff. Mm-hmm. And now it's obsolete. I mean, it really is. I'm just saying it. It's the stuff that you learned in the darkroom was great when there was a darkroom, but today, it's
not applicable.
It's not applicable. And I don't want you to think that I'm discounting what happened before. We needed the darkroom. We needed all those things to get us where we are today. Mm-hmm. So I think that we should appreciate it. I think we should acknowledge it. But it's just not applicable today. That's why he wasn't able to tell me, oh, well, because of
the tones and the range and the slider, I know exactly where this should be.
And so he's defending it because here's what it is it's just not where we are today. He wants to defend it because he spent the time. And if he says, yeah, all that time, I spent a whole year in the darkroom, it was wasted, it was useless.
You just said it, and it was kind of up on our screen. It's in your notes too. Yeah. But you just said it. He's defending what he learned, and I would expect that. Right. I mean, if you spent years and years and years learning something, it's not easy to just give that up.
You have to justify the expense.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I can totally understand it. It's just unfortunately not applicable.
And so I have an analogy for you. So let's just say that in the 1970s you were a mechanic, a really good mechanic. You were like the top mechanic in town, and you worked on cars in the 1970s. And you've retired and stuff, and you get a call from the Tesla rock band. No, the Tesla car company. They make the electric car.
Yeah.
And they say, hey, we want you to come and work for us because we heard you're a mechanic, and So you would show up at your job, and you would take a look at the Tesla engine. Can we see a picture of the Tesla engine here? That's not the Tesla engine. Good Lord, so this is the engine, okay? All right? That's the engine of a Tesla. Now, you last worked on the previous car. Can we show the Ford? All right, and that's not the picture of the engine. Thank you. When we scroll down to the actual picture, not of the hood, but of the engine.
Scroll down.
Keep going all the way to the bottom. Here, let me save you some time. Go all the way to the bottom. Or just keep scrolling one at a time, no problem. There we go. This is the engine you used to work on. Show us the Tesla. Jet engine. You used to work on this. Now, so you're looking at this jet engine, and you're like, well, where does the gas go in?
Where's the carburetor?
There's no gas. This is an electric car. So you don't have an edge up on anybody there.
Yeah.
It's a whole new game. And you know what? The kids that learn on that aren't going to have the frustration and the thing like, oh, this isn't the way we used to do it. Where's the carburetor? Where's the gas going?
Yeah.
Where are the spark plugs? That stuff doesn't exist anymore. You're using different tools. It's completely, completely different.
They don't have any preconceived notion of how it used to be, and they don't have to get through that.
Somebody wrote photography, wrote the principles apply in Lightroom. I would love to hear how you think they apply. You just threw out a sentence like he did.
Yeah.
Tell me how, because I'm getting pretty good at Lightroom. How about you?
I'm okay at it.
Moose?
Yeah.
I'd be interested to hear, because I use it all the time, and I'd be interested to hear how your black and white skills, instead of just saying the principles apply in Lightroom, I'd like to hear how what you learned in the darkroom.
How does it apply to that 0 to 100 slider?
Right, is it? And by the way, do you know who defends the darkroom?
People who use.
Don't say old people, please.
No, it's not.
Okay.
It's people who use the darkroom.
Yeah.
That's it. It's people who did it. The whole thing is basically fear-based. Things are changing. And you know what? And I'll tell you this. I don't care how much darkroom experience you have. I will take the same shot, give it to you, and I'll give you 5 hours in Photoshop to do whatever you want to do. I guarantee you, I can kick your ass in a black and white conversion by clicking one button in Nik Silver Efex Pro 2. I'll just look at your picture and go, I'll just pick one that looks better. Done. That's how black and white is done today. I don't know any pros today that are seriously doing a bunch of black and white that aren't using Nik Silver Efex Pro. This isn't a promo for Nik. But
It's
that's
just the
how
tool
good
that everybody's using.
It's the tool. It's what we do today for black and white. There's no, I don't care if you freaking worked with Ansel Adams. I don't care if you were with Ansel in his studio. I can open up Nik and go, beat ya. You don't have to know anything else about Photoshop.
Yeah.
All you have to know is to go filter, filter, Nik software, Silver Efex Pro. Look on screen, see which one looks better than yours, click OK.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. GMK wrote, in the darkroom, I learned what I wanted as a final product. That is still relevant. Hey, GMK, I can beat you in one click. Not because of what I know in Photoshop, but because of a plugin that anybody that buys Photoshop today can buy.
Well,
it's just how black and white is done.
Well, why does somebody, what did he say? I learned what I want.
And I learned what I want it to look like.
Well, why does somebody today that opens the photo up in Lightroom first and never went into the darkroom, why don't they know what their photos?
Yeah, we don't know what it looks.
I kind of sum it up in my Darwin theory of photography.
Let's hear it, bro.
It's real simple. Darwin theory of photography: evolve or perish. You know, it's yeah, black and white. You could have done the same thing, but poly contrast filters, they don't work no more. Mm-hmm. And the math is, while maybe based the same, we have curves and bell curves and all that kind of stuff. You didn't have a black slider in any Bessler enlarger, and black's just simply a black slider, and the whole photograph will change like that.
Mm-hmm. Just like that.
We had no option like that. In the wet darkroom, you had to do what? You had to look at a piece of paper, put it in some water, you had to dry it down, and they can see it. Now it's instantaneous. So if nothing else, we have the thing called time that we didn't have in the wet darkroom.
Right.
And when you have, we're just talking about it, you can spend more money on camera gear or what? Traveling somewhere to shoot. You can spend more money and time playing in a darkroom or what? Going out and shoot. There's no comparison in any of this. And well, maybe you could think of it as being relevant, but anything in photography you learn is relevant as you go forward. But if you hold on to the past, you never break that envelope.
Yeah, you know what I want to say to the guy that wrote that? Because I think his thing is still full of baloney. And here's why. Well, I thought it was nice saying baloney because it's not the word I wanted to use.
It was very nice.
Thank you. So, Frank liked that one.
I would have used that one. That's okay.
So here's the thing about it, is like he went in the darkroom to figure out what it's supposed to look like at the final end. You can do that online all day long. You can go look at the great black and white photography of anybody else and go, that's what I want it to look like.
Why not figure it out when you go click?
Click.
I hate to bring that up, but you know, go click.
Yeah.
And then, okay, it's not perfect. You do a couple things to finish it. And that's the whole idea of Lightroom and all these things is that they're finishing tools. They're not, oh, I screwed up, let's fix it tools. And that's might be where some people are having a real problem moving forward as well, is they can't get to finish. They always want to fix.
Yeah.
So you should be all done when you go click.
So here, Jock has a comment up here. I learned in the darkroom how to make a full range of tonality in black and white. So that has helped me in Lightroom and Photoshop. Haven't bought Silver Efex Pro yet.
Well, everybody learns differently, and that's valid, but it's still not what Scott's talking about.
Yeah.
You know, it's not. It's apple and oranges. That's the learning process versus point blank. You know how Photoshop and photographers are getting along now. It's not the way even 5 years ago, let alone 10 or 20 years ago.
And honestly, is it that hard to get a full range of tonality of a black and white image that you had to spend a year in a darkroom or 2 years? Is it that hard? Because my son can look at a picture and go, well, that needs more contrast. Click. Oh,
Yeah.
that's better.
Blacks,
There's
whites.
there's the full range of tonality right
blacks
there.
and white.
Click.
Click.
And the D4s make it easier because now
yeah.
we have even more dynamic range, so you have less opportunity to pop out those whites. So then you in the capture, you've got all the information. You just have to really kind of say more challenging is what does my heart say this picture should look like, and finish it that way. But the mechanics of it,
Yes,
it's a brain.
Now
it's a
that's
no-brainer.
something very important what he just said, because you know what it is? We're not talking about the artistic part of this, because sometimes what I may consider to be a good black and white may be different what Matt considers and what you
But that's a
consider.
value judgment, not a technical judgment.
That is, but that's exactly it. So, but just having I'll never forget, I was sitting in a classroom, and this is years ago, watching an absolute expert on photography, not photography, on digital imaging, show this image. And he was showing how you could look at this image, and it had the full range of tones. He had all the way, and he showed there was no clipping in the shadows, no clipping in the highlights, and it was the worst freaking picture I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It wasn't that his photograph was bad, but by keeping the full tonal range, it had no soul. It had no
blah.
depth. It was
Yeah.
a very flat, blah image that you could say technically
It's perfect.
was perfect.
But
all I could think of was, oh my God, add some contrast.
And that's what I was going to say to his last comment there, Jock's comment, which was you get the full tonal range. The only people that see that, it's the elite of the elite. The other people that look at your photo don't care if you have a full tonal range. They care if it looks like a good photo.
You know what else they don't care about? Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't
Well, I'm
mean-
not going to say that. You know, I think it's more importantly is a good storyteller, not a good photograph. The basic layperson who doesn't take a photograph, they don't go, hey, you got some great highlights. Oh, your shadows are kind of mucky. They just go, I like it.
Yep.
And that's it. It's a value judgment, and that's what we're speaking to. And that's where I think photographers need to understand. We're not looking at, you know, there's no little histogram going with our photograph around
Right.
the
There's not a
world.
loop going with it either.
No, it's just like, here's a story. Let me tell you a story. And it's kind of simple.
Now, another thing photographers, just on the same lines, that photographers notice we're crazy about and nobody else freaking notices it. Ready? Noise.
Oh,
Oh,
gosh.
yeah.
We are
Oh.
so crazy about noise.
Yeah.
But you know what? I tried to buy this. I bought, I was like at the doctor's office or dentist, I forget what it was, and I picked up ESPN magazine. And it was a great cover shot, and I see it sitting on the table, and I walk over there and pick it up. It had noise at a level. It looked like it was shot at 6400 ISO.
Yeah.
And it was the cover of ESPN magazine. If you ever go, like Sports Illustrated, the first two shots, the first 6 pages, they usually run 2-page spreads of some of the noisiest images you've ever seen. And you know what? Nobody freaking cares.
They just care if the image moves them.
They
Yeah.
care
They
if
look at
like
it.
you turn the page and it's telling a story and it's pow. Now, as a photographer, I turn the page and I go, oh, look at all that noise. Once I go, woo, ooh. But the only people that care
Or other photographers.
you know what? Joe McNally said something really, really great that I really. He said to me one day about somebody came up and said, I don't like this catch light or that catch light. And Joe says, the only people that care about catch lights are other photographers. Nobody else even knows what a catch light is or will ever even mention it.
Yeah.
No one ever comes up and goes, I love this photo, but the catch lights in the model's eyes look weird. They don't, it's like,
Yeah.
what? Frank's like, yeah. It's like, we notice it. We care. You have photographers that shoot with a ring light so they can get a particular catch light that no one will ever notice, but their assistant in the darkroom.
And it's really cool and fun when you have a new photographer and they're going along and they look at pictures and they're fine. And it's not until you actually point out that that's noise, they actually see it. It's not until you point it out, they're just like totally oblivious. Then you point it out and they see it everywhere.
Sway says, my darkroom training in college was fun, but I don't miss it. I love saving time to work on other new tips and techniques that grab my interest.
That's a good point. It's a time thing, too.
All right. What are the chances that guys, so this is Kevin Halliburton, what are the chances that guys like Moose, McNally, Maisel, et cetera, would have made the jump to digital if film was truly better? If you were defending film on a quality argument, then just how good do you think you really are? If you were shooting 8x10, okay, maybe. And he's meaning 8x10 negative.
Right.
Okay, so
The top one.
the top one. Go ahead, Maddie.
All right, it's Sierran is the name here. So here's a perfect defense too. So I've spent the past year in the darkroom and has improved my Photoshop skills. Every time I leave the darkroom, I scan my images and get them into Photoshop and try to get them looking right. So it's kind of like a defense. He spent the last year in the darkroom.
Yeah, spent the last year in the darkroom, so it's your job now to say, I didn't waste my time.
Yeah, you can't say I spent the last year in a darkroom and it sucked.
Look, nobody's...
But
okay.
it's the
Oh,
last,
it's supposed to be
two words
funny,
you
okay.
said.
Oh, it's supposed to be funny. Oh, good. Okay, I was about to say, okay.
Forget that comment.
Yeah, because I'm going to say, nobody's saying that you're stupid, that you learned all that stuff, but you have to admit, and you have to admit, it doesn't really give you a real edge today. It's not bad that you know it, right? But to think to yourself, or to try to make others believe that you somehow have an edge over photographers today that didn't learn it the old way, you're just fooling yourself, and you're not fooling anybody else.
But isn't the bottom line, the
right.
whole thing is you're just trying to tell photographers to kind of like go out and have fun and not take yourself and photography quite so seriously?
No kidding.
Is that kind of like the bottom line, this whole thing?
Right. Well, yeah, I'm actually
you
going
know.
to swing it around because.
Okay.
So here's the thing about Photoshop. Well, I want to talk about the future of Photoshop.
Okay.
Number one is, and you know what? I used to teach a class called Photoshop Black and White Boot Camp. I know you've taught black and white. I know you've taught black and white. We've taught it for years. And the thing is, the technology has changed. And honestly, although I can make a black and white no problem in Camera Raw, and I can do a pretty good job in Camera Raw, I still can't do as well as Silver Efex Pro.
Or as fast.
Or as fast, exactly. And because one of the things that Silver Efex Pro does is it shows you all these different versions of your image. And it's here's with a red filter, here's with a green filter, here's with contrast added, here's flat, here's, you know, here's infrared, here's for...
They've done the experimentation for you.
And
Exactly.
the pre-visualization, yeah.
All you have to be able to do is choose which one looks good to you.
You like.
And I don't ever tweak. There's a ton of settings you can tweak. I don't ever do it. I just go, oh, that looks good, click, okay. So Photoshop is evolving. And so one of the things I'm going to do, this is what's going to make a lot of people mad. So I just finished writing my book, the Photoshop CS6 book for digital photographers. And I did something in it that I'd never done before.
Uh-oh.
I removed the chapter on using curves.
Sacrilege.
Dun, dun,
Dun.
Where's the lightning bolt?
But we've talked about this for a while.
We've talked about this a
like
long
I remember when you wrote the CS5 book.
Yeah.
It might have even been the CS4 book where you kind of tossed that idea around. But
So I remember going to Matt's office one day, and I said, Matt, when was the last time you used curves? And Matt's got that look on his face like,
2006.
2006? You know, and here's what it is. Now, this is going to make people angry. Here's who it's going to make angry. The same people that learned in the darkroom, and that's why I brought the whole thing up. It's going to make Photoshop users angry who are very good at curves. Learning curves isn't easy. Understanding curves isn't easy. Once you've got it, it's like anything else. You got it, right? So it's going to make them angry. If they're going to be like, well, how can you put a book on photography out and not even going to mention curves at all? Yeah, I'm going to mention curves this much in the curves that are in Photoshop. But I'm not going to show you how to use curves. I show a couple specific things. Here's how to do a cross-processing effect. That's what I did. Here's how to do cross-processing. Here's how to add contrast. But can I tell you something? I used curves for contrast in CS5 and in Lightroom 3. I don't need it in Lightroom 4.
I don't. I did 3 stops on the tour last week, and when I got to the tone curve panel, I said, "Here's the tone curve panel, guys.
You can ignore this.
Do you want to see what I do with it?" And I clicked the little flippy thing, and I closed it. And I told him, I said, "This is what it's for. It's for people who used curves and who have worked on their photos with curves and are now coming into Lightroom, and that's what they're familiar with. But the only reason I ever went here was to add contrast. You want to know where I add contrast now?
The
contrast slider.
Because
And blacks and whites.
Because now it actually works.
It works really well.
The contrast slider works brilliantly now.
And you throw that in with blacks and whites. You say you're white and black
There's
and
a few
whites.
comments.
Okay, so Nancy or a lot of people are saying, really? No more curves? So here's the thing. And I was talking to Moose about this right before the show went on the air. There was a time, and it wasn't long ago, a few years back, where you needed curves because you could take a shot with your camera that was so messed up, the only hope you had in the world was to use curves to fix it.
Fix it mode.
Right, that was fix it mode.
Yeah.
If you have a camera today that takes such bad shots that you need curves, it's time for a new camera.
Or crayons.
Or crayons.
Yeah,
because you know what it is? Today, number one, camera raw is so powerful.
Now that's where you have to define that. From 6.0, ACR has radically changed our net processing.
I'm talking about also today, like where we are today.
Yeah, right.
So Photoshop CS6, which is out in beta right now, Lightroom 4. I'm talking about where we are today.
Right.
And honestly, I couldn't write a book on Photoshop and go, you're not going to really need this. You're not really going to do this. This is old technology that we used to do. Do you know when curves came out? Photoshop 1.
And that was a big deal then.
It was. Do you know how much different curves is today? It's not.
No, it's the same
tool. It is the same tool it was then. It does exactly the same thing.
With the same math.
With the same math as it did in Photoshop 1. Now, Monaco Javier, who's a very nice guy, by the way, even though I'm about to slam him, says, no, I'm just kidding. I'm still using curves on almost every picture I process in Photoshop. It could be more out of habit. Boom, I'm going to stop right there. That's it.
Yeah.
Monaco, you nailed it. And there's nothing wrong with what you're doing. But Monaco, you've been to Photoshop World. Monaco was in my class in Washington, D.C. Did I ever pull out curves? Come on, Monaco. It's 2012. It's time to move to the tools that photographers are using today. And that's what I had to do. And I went to Matt about this before I pulled the chapter out. Is like, we just do it differently today. How long are we going to use curves?
How long are you going to tell people this is the way we used to do it? And I'm going to put it in here. I'm going to put it into my book. And I'm going to confuse you. Because now I'm showing you something that I don't use. I don't recommend
that I don't know any of my
but
friends
I'm going to throw it in
use.
my book anyway, just because I'm kind of worried that somebody might say.
And the thing is, what you're actually saving them and what they're getting out of this is more time to go shoot, because we're speeding up the workflow process. So you're not spending time being a computer whiz, you're being a photographer, and there's a huge difference. And ACR is, seriously, a couple clicks, and you're back out shooting.
Give me the highlight and shadow slider.
Oh, yeah.
In Camera Raw, in
blacks.
Lightroom.
And give me clarity.
And give me clarity.
And the blacks.
And that'll
There's 4 sliders.
That'll take care of anything. I mean, you can't even get the same thing in curves.
No,
I could never get the same.
No, you cannot.
The same thing.
The math is amazing.
It's much more powerful. Hey, I just want to finish Monaco's comment. He says, I don't know of anything that does it any better in Photoshop. It's Camera Raw. Honestly, it's so much better. I use curves more for color correction than color enhancing. It's just what I've always done. So Monaco, and I agree with what you said in that. It's what you've always done. Everybody does that. So William Beam says, I use curves to find dust spots. Thanks for that tip, Scott. So I do a little tip with curves to help you find dust spots, but that's the only thing I think I use it for anymore. But hey, let me just do a little aside here. Hey, Frankie, you use curves much? We're asking Frank Duerhoff. For those of you who just joined us, he's sitting off the set here. Frank.
I do use curves, but for color correction and getting that cross-process look.
Oh, for cross-processing, yeah.
First show people how to do it with curves. And then immediately I will switch over to a plugin like Alien Skin or Nik.
Yeah.
Show now we can do it with one click, and otherwise you have to do it with curves, because I think people should know how to get there and then use filters.
Okay, so I have to kind of repeat that because you're not actually mic'd up. So what Frank said is, I 100% agree with everything Scott said about anything ever for all of humanity. No, that's not exactly what he said.
That's good paraphrasing.
Can we get the camera back on Frank real quick? So let's ask my dad. Dad, do you
do you use curves?
When's the last time you used curves, Dad?
I don't know. Long time ago.
Yesterday.
See? Long time ago. Anyways, what Frank basically said is he shows people how to use curves, and then you show them how to use a plug-in to do the same thing in one click.
Yes.
There you go. So
and then color correction. Color correction is the one that comes out all the time.
Yeah.
You want to know the most. You want to know the most frustrating thing to me is that I have a photo open in Photoshop that's not color corrected, and I have to go into color balance or curves or levels to color correct it because I don't like the way it doesn't give you as good color correction as a temperature and tint slider in Camera Raw. So what frustrates me is that I got to save it as a JPEG, and then I've got to close it. And then I've got to go to open and go to open in Camera Raw.
Well, why would you want to do that stuff to a file? It's not a raw file anyway. If you're going to start moving pixels, do it in the raw format.
Yeah.
keep the quality from the get-go.
So that's another thing, Moose. So I'm glad you brought that up, because when you work in Camera Raw, you know what you're never going to see? You're never going to see something that you see all the time in Photoshop, a progress bar.
Yeah.
Camera Raw is incredibly fast. And I want you to think about this. We're talking about the future of Photoshop here, so we finally got around to where I want to be. So the future of Photoshop, look where Adobe is adding most of the features for photography. Where's most of the stuff added in Photoshop 6? It's the all-new reworking of Camera Raw. It's the new clarity. It's the new shadows. It's the whites. It's the blacks. It's how they re-engineered the
process version.
The process version. It's how they did the exposure. It's like the reason why they keep adding features to Lightroom, the reason why they keep adding features to there. How many features did they add to Photoshop itself? Not nearly as many. They added the wide angle correction.
And some of them got tilt shift.
Which is pretty darn cool, by the way.
No, it is. But you know what the thing about the wide angle correction is? If you need it, it's brilliant. But how many photos are you going to come across where you actually need it?
It's for
the
wide,
very
wide
specific
angle.
thing, wide, like a fisheye or something, but it does a brilliant job. But if you're not using Camera Raw today, Camera Raw is so fast, it is the future. Because you know what, I remember being on a panel once, this is years ago, and they said, what would you love to see in the future of Photoshop? I said, you know what I want? I want Photoshop to work on a low-res image, let me make all my changes, click one button and it would apply it. There was a program, do you remember what the program was called? That did that years ago? It was very expensive. It was from France, as like all things from France are.
I'm totally drawing a blank.
Live Picture.
Yeah.
Live Picture was a program. It was very, very expensive. It kept track of every single thing that you did, and you worked on a low-res 72 DPI photo, so you're like going fast, and you clicked it at the end, and it applied every single thing.
Right.
You know what that is? That's Camera Raw.
Can I tell you a story that happened?
Unlimited undos. Undos forever.
Yeah. And so this story happened last week. I was teaching Lightroom 4, and remind you, the develop module in Lightroom 4 is exactly the same as Camera Raw. So I was teaching the develop module. We got to noise reduction, and I said, guys, this is it. This is the place for noise reduction, and I show them all the noise reduction stuff. And then at the break, somebody came up and said, I watched a video that said I need a third-party plugin for noise reduction, and I think that happens a lot out there. I think everybody has fallen victim to this because you watch these videos. The problem is most of these videos were created in 2009, 2008.
Right.
And you know what? Back in 2008, you absolutely did. I'm sure I did a video on it. I'm sure you taught it. I'm sure you taught.
Yeah,
you needed a plugin to do noise reduction.
That's right.
Today, you don't.
No.
But there's so many people out there that's when they were learning. So today they think, well, I have to use curves. I have to get a plugin for noise reduction because that's when I learn. We've all done it.
Sure.
I watch a video on YouTube and I see something I want. I don't necessarily always look at the date. If I find what I want to find from it, that's how to use noise reduction. I need to download this. Okay.
The noise reduction in Camera Raw is fantastic.
You won't find any better. Yeah.
But you know what drives me nuts is people spend gazillion dollars for megapixel cameras, right? Get that big raw file.
Right.
Then they go to Photoshop to work instead of ACR. And it's like, why did you get those megapixels just to blow them off and
to
screw
destroy
with them?
Right.
Yeah, I just don't. ACR since 6.0 is just rocks. Why would?
And by the way,
you
for
do
those
that?
of you who don't know, ACR is just an acronym for Adobe Camera Raw. So
Which is the same in Lightroom,
Yeah.
Bridge, Photoshop. It's the same, different little UI, but it's the same math.
All right, some comments.
So GP More Photo, this is a good one. So if we go one click Nik or Alien Skin or Topazer on one, what's left for Photoshop users? What's left for, and I mentioned this the other day because I did a video on the Liquify, how fast Liquify is in CS6. And to me, that embodies Photoshop. A Liquify filter embodies Photoshop. Selections. Layers. Those are all photo. You could even start to argue some of those things. You can do layered like things outside. Just the adjustment brush, if you think of it, is almost doing things in layers.
Right.
But Liquify, selections, some of those wide-angle correction tools, the ability to do what you can't do inside of Lightroom.
Well, we're not saying Photoshop should go away. We're saying that some of the old things in Photoshop just from a couple years ago need to come out of the workflow.
Yes. That's it. That's what the show's about.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
There are things that were in our workflow years ago that have been replaced. And you know what? Black and white has been replaced.
Yeah.
Curves
Curves
has been replaced.
Yeah.
You know, I still use levels every once in a while just because it's quick and I don't have to reopen. One thing I wish, Adobe, if you're listening, we've told them so many times it's not going to happen.
Let me open my photo.
Let me open my photo in Camera Raw. If I already have a photo open in Photoshop, don't make me close it. Go to the File menu, under Open, choose the image, choose Force to Open in Camera Raw. Then just let me take the
You
image.
gotta know
and
the
say,
secret handshake to even get it.
Yeah, you have to know the secret handshake. Just let me open
is
any
painful.
photo. Now, if you're in the bridge, you can press Command R on Mac, Control R on PC. It will open up any image in Camera Raw. But if you're not using Bridge, and God help you if you are.
But see, at that point, like I know, if I'm opening it, it's when I'm in Photoshop that I want it in Camera Raw. You know,
Right.
like,
Yes.
crap, you know, I got to adjust the white balance on this again.
Right.
Yeah, I want to
Right.
apply Photoshop as a filter. I mean, Camera Raw as a filter.
Yeah.
Just let me hit a button and it opens up in Camera Raw, but now I got to go through 50 things. So here's the thing. Now, I know that this is going to crank a lot of people. I'm going to see little things on tweets. Scott says curves are dead, blah, blah, blah. People will continue to teach curves, right? They're just going to.
Yeah.
Right? Because they know it.
It's familiar.
They're going to teach the darkroom.
It's like popcorn.
Moose, how many photographic college curriculums do you think today in 2012, are teaching photographic black and white darkroom film photography?
Oh, wet darkroom?
Yeah.
It's going to be less than 25%.
Right. But 25% of the colleges that teach it still have people going into the darkroom.
Yeah.
How long from now will they still be teaching curves? They are going to be teaching curves for years. You know why? You know what else they teach every day? Cursive.
Yes.
Do you know how useless freaking cursive is today? You know, like, and you know what? I asked one of my kids' teachers about this. I have a 6-year-old daughter, and I asked my teacher, and she says, well, it really helps with the kids' hand-eye coordination. That is the biggest bunch of crap I've ever freaking heard. Let me tell you what, there is not a 6-year-old kid that needs help with hand-eye coordination. They are masters of video games.
It's
the
called 4
absolute
letters.
master. Xbox 360. So here's the thing. Kids, they have the best hand-eye coordination in the world. But we're going to spend years teaching them to write cursive so they can write a letter to their grandmother. Here's what they're not teaching kids: how to maintain their own computer. If I went through my own company here, so we have 85 employees, 86 something employees, something like that. How many of them completely rely on our IT department to maintain their laptops?
I don't know.
All of them.
Really?
Yeah, except for the IT people. Yeah, if something goes wrong, I'm like, call Ron, call somebody, call Paul. You know, it's like, you know what? You have all these kids sitting in the classroom. My son takes a laptop to school every day. He has to. They all have to have laptops. So here's the thing. My son doesn't probably know. I mean, he might know because he's my kid. But I mean, does he know how to do a clean install? Does he know how to install RAM? Does he know how to change a video card? Does he know how to eradicate a virus? All these different things.
That will be infinitely.
That will make up your entire rest of your life. You're going to make these kids have to call the IT department for the rest of their lives, but by God, they'll be able to write grandma a letter she can't read. Right? Every time someone writes me a handwritten, am I right, Nancy?
Yeah.
Every time I get a handwritten
They
note.
can write grandma a letter she
Yeah,
can't
no, well, that's what it's
Is
for.
that an M or an N?
You know, every once in a while, someone takes the time to write me a handwritten note, and I kid you not, I'm sitting in my office like this. Dear Mr. Kelby,
It's nice to meet you.
and then I have to call somebody. What does this say? And they're like, repeat? No, it's like repurpose. Repurpose. There we go. It's like you have to get a committee together to read someone whose handwriting is pretty good.
Yeah.
So I think curves, I think black and white in the darkroom, I think cursive all belong in the same thing. You know what it is? We just need to freaking snap out of it. I know that people don't want to change, but there are techniques that are what we're doing in today. And I made my whole book about what we're really doing today. And I know that it's gonna affect some people. They're gonna be like, I'm gonna read reviews that say, well, you're just missing the whole thing on curves.
How do you call this a book on Photoshop for photographers if you don't have curves?
Here's what stinks about that. The people that will write that review already know curves. They probably teach curves. And they're gonna be pissed because I basically said, that thing that you've been teaching for years, this thing that you know have gotten so good at is really outdated. It's like the 1970 Torino's engine. It doesn't really apply to what we do today. Hey, Brad says, my school's excuse, this is for writing cursive?
No.
My school was they have to teach the wet darkroom stuff in order to retain some sort of accreditation for their art program. A lot of schools said they don't have the budget to upgrade their computers and software to teach the latest stuff, yet they spend money on darkroom supplies that keep getting more and more expensive. Makes sense, right? Don't forget what those darkroom supplies do to the environment. I mean, they're like, you got darkroom supplies, you have to go to a hazmat place to get rid of your stuff. Okay, hey, your chemicals. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we have some giveaways, and we're going to read Monaco Javier, who will be in our doghouse here shortly, his next comment. And stick around. We'll be right back right here on the grid. Remember, enter our contest in cursive.
Curves are dead.
Hi, I'm Bill Frakes. I'm a Sports Illustrated staff photographer. Come join my class in environmental sports portraiture. Learn how to have athletes moving at top speed in the context of the games they play, and use the camera to control it so it's action, yet still a portrait. We're going to talk about my general gear. We're going to talk about specific setups for basketball, football, and baseball. The things you need to be successful covering each of those sports. Come check out my latest class on kelbytraining.com.
Hey, we're back. Scott Kelby, cursive loving guy with
What's the matter, Moose?
with Moose and Matt.
Nothing. It's a very comical issue here we got going. So
As they count down, and then it's
All
like,
right.
why are people afraid of learning and moving forward? What's like?
But they are.
It's like, will the sun not rise tomorrow if you don't learn something new, or if you? I just don't get it.
Hey, as hard as curves is, if you learn curves and you got it, you can learn camera raw.
I mean, all we're trying to do is like free them even more from the computer to go shooting. That's all we're trying to do, and people get mad about it. I just don't get it.
Because you know what I always say at the Lightroom, and I always, when I'm talking at my Lightroom seminar, I always start off by saying, I hate production work. I hate it. If I want to be in Photoshop, I want to be doing fun stuff, like you said, finishing stuff. I don't want to spend time doing crappy. I hate production work. Especially hate fixing things in Photoshop that I could have fixed in the camera. I feel like it's a personal failure, and that pisses us off.
I know that goes really deep too.
Right. All right, now I'm going to stop for a second. We're going to read Monaco's comment here in a second, but I want to just give Frenchie a heads up. Frenchie, contest time.
Okay, so let's get this started so we can stop with all the comments, which are rolling in super fast. So we are giving away On One, and we are also giving away 2 copies of Frank Dorhoff's CD. So in one comment, only once, your name, your email, and the prize you want to win.
Won't people see their email?
how many times?
No, they won't, because I will not be approving any more comments until everyone is done entering the contest.
How many times? How many times?
Enter once.
So I got something that would make people write more comments in, though.
Oh, good. We need more.
You know
All
what
right.
else I think is dead?
What?
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
Oh, it's coming.
Channels.
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 You might be right, dude. I think.
I know I think this one might even be somewhat more controversial in some ways in curves, depending on who you are and what you do.
Because
But
what was the big thing
line,
we
yeah.
did with channels today to this day? What's the one last thing we did with channels?
selections?
Selections.
And I took a lot of heat on this in my compositing book because I never ever covered making selections with channels.
Why would you?
Because it's not what we use today.
But it's
Yeah.
what we used to use.
We
And I
did-
learned
we
channels.
did.
I wrote a whole book on channels, Matt.
You did?
I wrote the channels book. It's called The Channels Book.
And you know what? That book, it wasn't 10 years ago.
No.
I
No,
mean,
it wasn't.
it was 5. But when you wrote that book,
Let's see when it was.
That was
2005, 6-ish.
Oh, don't say that. I'm going to look it up. I'm not that old.
Maybe it wasn't just 5 years ago. Hold on.
and you know what? Channels Go Away would not make me sad at all.
Channels book. 2006.
Wow, you're fast. 2006.
So 6 years ago.
So 6 years ago. There it is right there.
But we used channels.
I do like the cover art.
Thank you. Jessica did that. She's very good.
It's very good.
You don't have to use channels for color. I mean, there's nothing color related. Very, very specialized things that you would do color related in channels. And then the big thing we used channels for was to make a selection.
Yeah.
And Dude, I'll challenge you. You give me a photo. You let me use Refine Edge in Photoshop. You use channels. Let's see who gets a better selection faster.
That's right.
Ooh, yeah. All right, I'm going to throw one out there too. And it's something that I used quite a lot, and I've stopped using it, and I don't want to make anybody mad, but it's going to make somebody mad. You know what I've stopped using? And I removed it from the book too?
What?
Ooh.
What?
Uh-oh.
Oh, I know. Go ahead.
LAB color.
Yes.
You know why?
Vibrance.
Vibrance. I can get the LAB color look pretty much. Now, Dan Margulis could beat me, but for God's sakes, he's Dan Margulis. That's like when you say, oh, well, you know, I do this in my wildlife photography, but Moose does that. Well, sure, he's Moose. So there are certain people that you don't ever want to go up against. Dan Margulis for color, Moose for landscape, or Moose for anything.
Brad pointed this one out, too. You know what else? You know what Scott has stopped using in
using
camera?
my camera?
Dude, this is crazy.
Yeah.
ISO.
ISO, I turned it off on my D4. I don't use ISO anymore.
You have it set to idle?
No,
he just doesn't use
I have
ISO.
ISO off.
Just aperture and shutter speed.
You
Who
never
cares
ever
about
get any
ISO?
noise no matter what.
Dude, if he wants 4,000th of a second, he gets 4,000th of a second.
I know where that started.
Sometimes I turn off shutter speed. Anyway, it's in the menu. Okay, so anyway, but I do think.
Hold on. Christopher Arnold says, but Scott, without cursive, how you sign all your books? You know what the funny thing about the way I sign my books?
Yeah.
I write an M, and I scribble, and then I write a K, and then I scribble. And you know where I learned that from?
Where?
I learned that from a very important man.
Who?
He's here today.
Frank?
My dad.
Oh, your dad? Okay.
I learned it from forging his signature when I was young.
Hey, don't
and I
give us that wrap-up stuff.
He just writes an E and a K, and he scribbles
She gave us a circle. What does that mean? Keep it going? All right. We're going to stretch it out a little bit.
Sorry, Dad.
Monaco Javier, I'm going to leave this episode with my tail between my legs. Yes, you are, Monaco. We still love you. It's okay. You're a good guy. I agree with everything that Scott said. However, okay, now let me just stop right there.
Unfortunately, he didn't say however.
Unfortunately. I'll say, here's the thing. You should always stop your sentence with, I agree with everything that Scott said. Let's just move on. So anyway, okay. Unfortunately, I have a lot of other teachers besides Scott, and I use a little bit of what I've learned over the years from all of them because that's what I learned, and that's what is working for me, including using curves. The funny thing is, I actually changed my workflow a lot since I joined NAP. I've been attending seminars in Photoshop world. There's still things I do, like using curves in the pen tool, that are still working for me, but I have changed a lot how I use Photoshop. So, Monaco, what I would say to you is you can still do it the old way. And people will still do it the old way. I didn't today stop the end of.
Cops.
There's no Photoshop police. They're not going to come and say you can do it the old way. But just understand that you're doing it the old way. That technology has moved on. There are faster, better, less destructive,
funner,
gooder, bester.
There you go.
Ways to do it. You can still stick with the old ways. But you know what it is? I just want people to consider, and that's what I was hoping to get from this show, is that people would, we're starting to do this in photography. Everyone's getting like panicked about these things, but like, I think, and you're one of the trailblazers in this. You're one of the first guys to move on to the new things. And I think that we all have to kind of, to realize, is there ever been a time where technology is moving faster than it is right now?
I don't think so.
A lot of it's because of mobile devices. Yeah. Mobile devices have changed the way we show our work. You have an iPad, right? And you have your portfolio on there?
Oh, yeah.
Is that the main place you probably show your portfolio?
Oh, yeah.
There and online, right?
Yeah.
And you would have people that go, you can't have your portfolio on it's got to be in print. That's the real thing. They'll go on and on and on. And can I tell you something? There's absolutely a magical quality to print. And I love the print. I'll probably never get over it. I'll probably never lose my love affair with it. That doesn't mean that I have my portfolio on my iPad. I have a portfolio online. That we have to be willing to not get stuck in these things just because we learned them. It doesn't take it away that you learned it. It's good that you learned curves. It's good that you learned channels. It's good that you learned all those things. It's just not what photographers are really doing today. It's not where Photoshop's going. It's not where Adobe's going with the product. You just have to sometimes go, you know what? Things are changing, and I'm going to stick with it. Any final words, Mr. Kolskowski?
I was going to say also, Monaco hit on a good point, which is he has a lot of other teachers. And I think a lot of people fall into that. You've got to go with who you trust. Part of this is, you know what? Everybody's going to do it a little bit differently. I'm sure you work your photos differently than I work mine, than you work yours, than RC Pete, Ben Wilmore, Deke McCullen. I'm sure they all have their own ways. In the end, you kind of have to just go with who you trust too. Who are you going to follow? Because if you're going to follow everybody, you're going to get confused as crap.
Yeah,
That's right.
So pick somebody that you trust and that you kind of sync with and that works for you, and just follow it.
Now, you also might have people that you use for different things. Like if I was going to do an air-to-air shoot next week, which is unlikely, by the way.
Oh, Lordy.
I would call you. I would call you immediately and say, Moose, what do I do? What kind of lens do I take? Because I trust you when it comes to that stuff. Not the actually flying in the airplane, but but everything outside of that, how to make a great picture out of an airplane, I would trust you implicitly. So there are people that I trust. If I have a hot shoe flash question, I'm going to look to whatever Joe McNally says. That's the Bible.
Yep.
And so there are certain people I trust for certain things. And so I think you can have, but none of those people are teaching a particular whole workflow. You know what I mean? It's like I understand what Monaco's saying is like, hey, I'm getting this from here and this from there. So Monaco, I'm not saying follow me, but follow me. No, what I'm saying is just be open to growing. Because using curves, you're not growing. You're stuck using technology from, is Photoshop 21 years this year?
1991, right?
1991. You're using color correction technology. You know what? You want to stop ever having to use curves for color correction again? Get your white balance right. Set your white balance. Go to Camera Raw, fix your white balance. Better yet, you want to really make it right? Fix it in your camera. Set your white balance to the right thing.
Yeah.
Do this.
Hopefully we've got people who felt real comfortable to feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And when you feel uncomfortable, you try to get comfortable again, and that's where you find new things. I mean, at one time, curves were new, right? And we embraced
exciting.
curves. Now we're saying curves are old. It's time to embrace something else new and move everything forward. Not only your photography, but the way you think about it, and hopefully the way you approach it and the way you share it. That's all we're saying here. We're not trying to destroy anybody's, dream or workflow, just pushing them down the road a little bit further.
And you said it best, because we're going to wrap up with this. You said it best, is that you want to get back to shooting. Camera Raw will get you there a lot quicker. Even if you're comfortable with curves, even if you know it, your Camera Raw will get you. There's nothing faster. I don't know of anything faster or better on the planet. And that's the other thing is, there were times where I could make, like you could say, well, I really use Photoshop, but there are some programs out there that do a better job of processing your images. I don't think there is anything right now that I know of out there that processes images better than Lightroom or Camera Raw. I think the technology has taken a giant leapfrog recently. Hey, one last thing, just want to make an announcement. So I'm leaving this week on Saturday. Brad and I, and friends, are heading to Paris.
You just got back.
That was from London.
That's the other side of the pond.
I'm teaching 3 classes in Paris that are Kelby training online classes. Class number 1, this is the big one. A day with Jay Maisel in Paris.
That'd be sweet.
Wow, is that going to be amazing?
Unbelievable. Lucky dog.
All right, so that's number 1. Number 2 is when that's over, I'm going to actually go to another side of Paris. I'm going to teach a class on travel photography, just on the photography part of it. And I put together, the last class I was really, really passionately excited about was my Crush the Composition class, which has been, of all the classes I've ever done, probably the one that's gotten me the most acclaim. I'm as excited about this travel class as I am about the Crush the Composition. I can't wait to teach it. I swear I cannot wait. Not because it's in Paris, though. Paris is the perfect place. but I'm as excited to teach it as I can. And then the third class is based on my class at Photoshop World. This class that I never thought would do that great at Photoshop World is absolute standing room only. Photoshop for travel photography.
It's a great class.
You will not see curves, by the way. Thank you. Did you sit in it?
Yeah.
You're a good man.
It's a great class.
So, so I'm going to take the images that we shot in part 1, and we'll actually post-process them in part 2. So that's coming. I'll leave Saturday for that, and we're going to be over there for a week taping. So if you're in France, see me and Jay cruising around, or just see me walking along the Seine, and see me in the Eiffel Tower wearing a beret, feel free to come up and say hi.
Take a picture,
Moose, where can we learn more about you, buddy?
MoosePeterson.com. I keep it simple.
You do. And you're on Google+?
I'm on Google+. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. Yeah, I'm on Kelby Training. I'm traveling.
He's everywhere.
You're everywhere. Oh, there we go. Look right there. There's Moose's site.
There's Moose.
Yeah. Hey, new iPad, digital version.
That's right.
Oh, yeah?
That's right. So BT Journal. Can you tell them, I'm sorry, I know we're over time. I promised 60 seconds, Moose. Tell us about BT Journal.
The BT Journal's been around for 16 years. It's been a hard copy. It's gone to 13 countries. It's quarterly. And I just wanted to expand the way I could share information in a faster method. So my son Brent put it to digital, and what we were able to do is to take the basic 28-page you see hard copy format, but we increased it. We've got big slideshows, we've got videos. The last page has a digital darkroom lesson, no curves, and it just, we expanded the way we can share. Now it can go across the country and across the globe through iTunes. The support has been great, can't thank people enough, and we're just trying to get more people involved in the photography.
And so what is BT Journal about? If you one sentence, it is about?
Photography.
There you go.
It is about photography.
Where can they find it?
iTunes.
iTunes, the App Store?
Yep.
Go to the App Store if you have an iPad. And is it available for Android? Just kidding. Okay, Matt.
Yes.
Where can we find you?
Just check out my blog over at lightroomkillertips.com, Google+, Facebook. All the links are on there. So.
All right. For me, just go to scottkelby.com. And Matt Brunyon says, Jay may hurt some delicate Parisians' feelings. Let's hope so. All right, everybody. Thanks so much. Thank you, Moose, very much for being on the show today.
Thank you, my friend. It's always great.
Thanks to MPix.
Thanks, Moose.
Thank you, bud.
Thanks to Frank for sitting in.
Thanks, Frank.
Thanks, Frenchie.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
This week's episode of The Grid is sponsored by MPix. Shoot today, upload tonight, we ship tomorrow. Manfrotto, imagine more. On One Software, software that gets you back to shooting.
Adorama, more than a camera store. And Tiffin, helping create the world's greatest images.